and welcome to the inaugural episode of NintendPals, a brand new podcast all about our favourite gaming company in the whole world, Nintendo. My name's Miles. I'm joined by my very good friend Nick.
Hey, how you doing? Inaugural, that was a good word. I was thinking as you were talking there, like, how else could you say the first episode? Like numero uno, all that kind of stuff. But inaugural's a good word. So yeah, hello.
I thought it'd make you sound smart.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. You fooled me.
Yeah, so this is the first ever episode. So bear with us a little bit. We're getting used to this. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what we hope to accomplish with the podcast. It's going to be a weekly podcast. We're going to aim to keep it under an hour because we know people have got things going on. They've got other podcasts to listen to. And we're just going to talk about recent news in the world of Nintendo, a little bit about what we've been playing each week, and then we'll do some different little special sections each week as well. This week we're going to do a top and bottom five. And then we'll do questions and stuff if people get in contact with us. But we thought we'd kick off by sort of telling you, the listener, a little bit about us, why we're doing the podcast, and sort of why we love Nintendo. So I guess I'll hand over to you, Nick. You can kick us off there, I guess.
Yeah, cool. So I'm Nick. I am 28. I like long walks on the beach, all that kind of stuff. So I've been, I guess, gaming officially since I was about 4 or 5. I remember, I'm sure it was for my birthday. My mum and dad had bought me a NES Deluxe set, which came with Rob, Gyromite, Zapper, and Duck Hunt, all in one kind of package. I also remember as well that I wasn't allowed to use Rob. I don't know if you've ever seen one or used one.
No, I've only seen him on Smash Bros.
Yeah, it's like proper plastered in warning labels. And if you start to use it, it's got these 2 discs that spin around like really really quickly, kind of like a saw or a file or something like that. So Rob was actually packaged up back in the box, and actually it wasn't until a few years later that I actually started to use it. So yeah, that was kind of my start into Nintendo. Got a SNES about kind of 93, 94. And then a Game Boy in between that, and kind of kept going from there really. And I was just trying to add back before we started what consoles I had, and I think I've probably had everything apart from a Virtual Boy, which is probably for the best. But yeah, Nintendo have had all my money over the years. Probably favourite game, I guess that's a good one. Probably Pokemon Red. I think that's the game that I've spent the most amount of time on. Probably 250 hours, I think, all in. I remember the first time I ever completed it. So by that I mean getting all the Pokemon. Me and a friend spent ages, because he had blue, I had red, catching all the different Pokemon, and we were kind of trading them between us. And actually, the spoiler alert, I think spoiler alert's alright for this one. It's probably been out a few years.
You can get away with it again. That's like 25 years old.
But basically, you get to the end and you catch all these Pokemon. And you think, oh, awesome! I'm going to get this really super rare Pokemon or this super rare item. And this guy gives you a certificate, which if I remember back, I don't even think saves as an item, so you don't even put it in your bag. I think like you look at it once, you click A, and it's gone. And kind of, I put that game down and didn't play it again for a few years. But that's probably my favourite ever game. Bit of a Pokemon fan. Yeah, cool. So that's kind of me. Miles?
Yeah, I suppose similar beginnings. I've got an older brother who I got into gaming via him, I guess. I think we had a Spectrum originally, and then an Amiga after that, and then then we had an NES between us, which we had like all the original classics like Super Mario Bros. And all that, and then I think I got a Super Nintendo, which is where I really fell in love with Nintendo. I got one second hand when I was probably 7 or 8, maybe around that age, maybe a little bit younger, and that's where I really fell in love with Nintendo, because it came with Super Mario World and Mario Kart, and I remember just playing those 2 specific games just sort of endlessly for months and months. So that's really where they got their claws into me. I also had the original Game Boy. I don't think I had many of the Game Boys in between. I know I had a Game Boy SP, but I don't think I had many between the Game Boy and the Game Boy SP. I stepped away from those. But yeah, same as you. Other than that, I've had pretty much every Nintendo console that they've released. at the minute I've got everything Nintendo. I don't own anything other than Nintendo consoles at the moment. I've got a Wii U and the new 3DS.
Hardcore. Hardcore. It's dedication.
Yeah. No Sony or Xbox in my house. Favourite game, it's a tough one because, especially when you talk Nintendo, because there's just so many games. I think if I'm talking overall, it probably would have to be Yoshi's Island on the Super Nintendo, the original Yoshi's Island. I remember getting that for a birthday when I was probably maybe 11, 12, something like that. But recent memory, probably either Animal Crossing New Leaf for the 3DS or Super Smash Bros. That came out this year just gone. I think I've put like 50 odd hours into the 3DS version of that. It's scary how addictive that game is. But yeah, that's pretty much me, I think.
Cool.
Least favourite Nintendo game, as we've talked about favourites, and that sticks out as a abhorrent game.
Trying to think back. I was actually having a quick discussion with my brother before I came online, and we were talking about rare games that actually turned out to be awful. And there's a game called Cheetah Man, which I think was originally on a NES cartridge called Action 52 or something like that. And as I remember, the game's basically unfinished, so you get to a part of the level where you actually can't get past it anymore. I've only ever played it emulated, unfortunately, because I think it's pretty expensive. But that is probably the worst Nintendo game that I've ever played, personally. You?
I don't actually know the name of this game, but I think it was on the NES, and it was a game based on Looney Tunes. It was a platforming game, and it was just the hardest game ever made. I think I must have played several hours of it, and I think I never got past like the second level.
Did you play as Bugs Bunny? Is that the one?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I played as Bugs Bunny. I think I destroyed a controller playing that game because it was just the hardest game of all time. I wish I could remember the name of it now, but I just can't. It just escapes me. But yeah, it would be that for me. It's a horrible game. It's
quite amazing actually. Like when you go back and play some of those old NES stuff, how hard those games were. Like I remember. I remember my dad actually completing a game called Gumshoe, which was on the NES, which was one of the few games that kind of exclusively worked with the Zapper. And I remember him finishing the game, which is amazing, really, because he's absolutely terrible at games. But I went back probably a year ago and tried to play it again, and it's absolutely solid. I don't know whether it's just because we've got used to different ways of playing games and how quick things will react or whatever. But some of those games are really tough.
Yeah, they are. They're punishing. I mean, I downloaded the original Super Mario Bros. On Virtual Console, and that game is just silly how hard it is. When you compare it to like a new Mario game, it's just rock hard. Yeah, they are good though. We need to play some of those. We'll have to. One thing we'll do in the future is we'll both buy one of the games and we'll play them and we'll give our reviews.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. I think as you'll find as the weeks go on. I'm a self-confessed. I'm pretty terrible at games, actually. So we can have a laugh maybe if we play that. Cool. All right. Well, I guess that's all about us and about the podcast. As Mar said at the start, kind of bear with us a little bit. We'll kind of feel around for the first couple of weeks and hopefully get a bit of a rhythm going. And your guys' feedback will be really good, which we'll give you the contact details for at the end. So if there's anything you want us to talk about or I'm conscious I say so all the time, so there you go. no, not on purpose. So if there's anything you find annoying, let me know and I'll try and stop that. Let's move on to the first section then.
Yeah, which I believe is the news.
I'll kick off with the first story. Something that I saw last week, which was that Nintendo are finally back in profit. So 2014 saw Nintendo return to net profit. They say return. Actually, it was 2012 that they last made a profit. So actually, it was only 2013 that they didn't. But I guess that's really positive to see. Some sales numbers for you. So the Wii U sold 3.93 million in 2014. That's worldwide. If you compare that to the 3DS sold 7 million just between April and December. So the 3DS is obviously leading the way, but the Wii U is selling pretty well. We look at that over the first 2 years, the Wii U's actually sold around 9 million units. So the majority obviously was sold in the first year. That's actually quite a way off though, the Wii's initial sales. So by the end of year 2, the Wii had actually sold 20 million. So it's some way off where the Wii was at. But if you think back to when the Wii came out, the kind of the hysteria that was around that console, the good thing about that, I guess, is that it pulled in so many casual gamers, whereas the Wii U hasn't really done that, that I've seen. You know, not many kind of family members that I know that aren't into games have a Wii U, whereas most of them, I guess, have probably got a Wii. PS4 in comparison has sold 16 million units. Look at some of the games. So Smash Brothers sold 3.39 million so far. 4.7 million copies of Mario Kart 8 have been shipped, which is quite interesting because that's over half of their current base actually own Mario Kart 8. Smash 3DS has sold 6.2 million units. So yeah, I guess that's really positive, really. We think back to 2013. It wasn't a great year, and actually, I didn't buy a Wii U when it first came out. I don't know whether you did, Miles.
I got mine, I think it was about 12 months after it came out, because I got mine I've had mine just over 12 months actually, so I think I was about a year out, I think.
Yeah, I'm probably about the same. I've probably had it for about 12 months. I waited. There wasn't really any games that had kind of made me want to buy one, but yeah, it's interesting. It's good it's great to see them back in profit. With all that being said, how do you think 2015 is going to fare for Nintendo?
I think it's kind of going up from here. I think if you look at the last 6 months that Nintendo have had with their games, when the Mario Kart DLC coming out, Amiibo being released, and then the Smash Bros games both coming out, there's so much positivity around Nintendo about the quality of the game that they release, especially when you look at other big developers and publishers, like just to name like Assassin's Creed, how angry everyone was about the mess that was, and you don't ever get that with Nintendo, and it's kind of been brought to light through those games that have been released. So I think it's all positive. And when you look at what they've got coming out this year, I mean, if they stick with their release schedule, they've got Star Fox coming out, there's a Zelda coming out, there's a few other things, there's Splatoon coming out quite soon as well, so there's all these great things coming out, and people are starting to realise that Nintendo, although they don't release masses of games, and it's not like a PlayStation or an Xbox where you've got games every week, the stuff they release is always of such a high quality that people I think they're starting to come back around, and more people are starting to pick up the Wii U now. It's definitely not a family console. I mean, like you said, the Wii was a family console. Everyone had one. I know plenty of people who've still got them stashed under their television, but that's not what the Wii is about. It's about gaming. But yeah, I think it's going to be positive. I think it's going to be nothing but good things, and I think it's going to be slow growth for them.
Yeah, I think you're right. They've had a good start to the year. We'll talk a little bit about Majora's Mask and Monster Hunter later, but obviously those are two massive games for them to release early on. The new 3DS, again, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but yeah, I think it's going to be pretty positive for them. And I'm starting to see a lot of people that were completely against the Wii U kind of starting to come around to the idea now, and also looking from a retail perspective, you're starting to see a lot more stores finally starting to range Wii U games and accessories and stuff. So I think availability should hopefully get a little bit better, and awareness out on the streets as well.
Yeah, especially with the Amiibo stuff, that's really pushing it forward, because people want to collect the Amiibo, and people want those figures. I think that's really helping them out, because if places like Sainsbury's and Tesco's and supermarkets are selling the Amiibos, they kind of need to sell the consoles and the games that go along with them, I guess. So it's all good.
Yeah, and speaking of Amiibo, I saw some data a couple of days ago saying that they'd sold something like 6 million Amiibo since it's launched, so it's pretty lucrative for them, and obviously they've only just started, so that's a good point. I think Amiibo will definitely help bring them into profit if they are making a lot of money off them, which I don't know whether they are really. You know, you look at the quality of the figures. I mean, you consider that I think RRP is $10.99, even though we seem to pay £14.99 pounds. I guess we'll say at this point. Yeah. I don't know how much money they actually make off them. I guess there's enough. I think, even if they're making a pound off them, it's just over 6 million units. They're still bringing in a nice bit of profit, aren't they? So
yeah, I'd have thought they're being clever with it, and I would have thought that they're probably not expensive to make.
No.
And they've been so clever the way they've marketed them, and the kind of the false availability and panic that they've managed to whip up with the rarer characters like people like Marth, who are really rare, are selling really well because people like the collectors
panic
feel like they need to buy it because they know it's not going to be around. I mean, I've got about 9 Amiibo, and I think I've got a Marth who's a rare, and I saw that in the shop and I was like, I need to buy the Marth, because who knows? No, I haven't got a Marth. Sorry, I've got a what's the guy's name from Fire Emblem?
Ike, is it Ike?
Ike, yeah, I think it's Ike. Yeah, I've got one of him because I saw him in the shop, and I was like, I need to buy that guy because he's never going to be around again. So the fact that they've made that a thing is pretty clever, to be fair.
It is. Cool. So that's the first bit. Mars, you've got another news story for us?
Yeah, well, I did have three, but I'm going to kind of put them, two of them together because they both focus around Amiibo, actually. So it's kind of an easy place to move on from. This is based off the back of the shareholders meeting that Nintendo had recently. It's all been translated now, so all the information is starting to come out. There's a couple of really interesting things about Amiibo which have come out. One of them is that later on this year, Amiibo is going to be re-released in card format. So they're going to release cards that have got little NFC chips in them that will act exactly the same way. So you touch it against your Wii U, or you touch it against your new 3DS, and you've got your characters. I assume they're doing it because it'll be a cheaper way of doing it. But I thought that was really interesting. I wonder whether, do you think they'll sell better than the figures, or?
Well, I don't. In comparison to you, I've only got one Amiibo, and in all honesty, I only bought Peach to try and hook my two daughters into playing Smash Brothers with me because they like Peach. I guess my biggest problem with Amiibo is that I hear it a lot. They are kind of pointless, realistically. You know, it's good to get some costumes and stuff, but you could just buy that through DLC if you really wanted it. I think taking away, for me, what is the kind of the selling point to me would be the fact that it's a figure more than it's something that unlocks a costume or an extra level or something. I don't think I will buy the card format of it, especially as I reckon they probably won't be that much cheaper than an Amiibo.
Yeah, I can't imagine them being a lot. Like I say, it's 11 quid the RRP here, so I can't imagine them doing any cheaper than like a £5, I guess, for one card. Otherwise, there wouldn't be much point, I guess. I mean, I'm kind of the opposite to you. I really like Amiibo. I mean, part of the thing is that I like to collect them. Like I say, I've got 9 figures, and they're staring at me now from our bookshelf, and I just like looking at them. I think they're cool. And I mean, if you look at some of the stuff they are going to do, and there are some cool things coming. One of the things was the other thing I was going to talk about was they're going to introduce free software with some of the Amiibos. So I think the idea is, from what I've read, is say if you've got a Mario Amiibo, you go to the eShop, you scan him in, and then you can play a selection of an old NES title or an old SNES title. Obviously, that's like a Mario game. So you put your Amiibo on, then you get to play a couple of levels of Super Mario 3 from the NES, which I thought was a really, really cool idea. And then obviously I assume that they'll ask you to buy the game, but if they're going to take it that way, I mean, and then you've also got things like the Kirby game that's coming out. I think it's coming out this week in America, and then we get it in a couple of weeks' time. That's doing some really clever stuff with Amiibo, where it actually unlocks content for the game. So I personally think if they keep on doing that kind of thing, and it's not just unlock a costume or all that kind of pointless stuff, I think they'll be good. But what do you think about that? They're doing the free software with the Amiibos. I think it's cool.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I think from my perspective, like, I know obviously you've only got Nintendo stuff, but having a PlayStation 4, my biggest gripe with Nintendo has always been the kind of their inability to do online very well. Probably aside from kind of gaming on stuff like Smash Brothers and Mario Kart, which is always absolutely spotless. The kind of the purchasing, etc., how the store looks, the speed, all that kind of stuff has always really annoyed me.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
So actually, like, buying virtual console stuff, I don't buy a lot of it. But yeah, it's a nice idea. I guess it draws more people's attention to the fact that they can go back and purchase Mario 1, 2, 3, etc. So it's only going to lead to more sales for those guys. And it's, as you say, anything extra they can give us on top of just unlocking a costume would be welcome. So all for that.
Yeah, I do. On a sidebar, I do agree with you though about the store, especially the Wii U one. But they want that to be their main store. It's really bad to try and find a game. If you go to the Virtual Console, you can't actually look at stuff alphabetically at the moment, from what I've worked out, unless there's some secret way of doing it. And that to me is just crazy town. Why can't you just look at the content they've got on their store in like a sensible way? It is bad. They do need to look at it and make it more user friendly, because otherwise they're just not going to buy from there.
No, it definitely puts me off. The games aren't massively expensive. Some of the NES stuff is what, £3-4 on some of the titles, which isn't a huge amount of money. But I kind of begrudge spending that money when the user experience is just so poor in comparison to what you get with PlayStation or Xbox. So yeah, hopefully they'll look at that in the future anyway.
Yeah, and the other thing they need to do with the store is make it universal. So there's no reason at the minute why if you buy a game on a virtual console to play on the Wii U, a SNES game, at the minute I can't access that on my 3DS. That to me seems crazy.
And again, something that PlayStation does that so well. There are so many games that feature cross-play where you'll purchase it on PS4 and you can play it on your Vita or you can play it on your PS3.
Yeah, especially I suppose it's not virtual console, but the PS1 games, those are completely compatible across everything, aren't they?
Yeah, and then you can put it on your Vita TV, PlayStation TV, and stream it. So yeah, they've got a lot of catching up to do, which I know everyone's aware of. But that's cool. They've got room to grow, so things can only get better, as they say. Next bit. So next quick story. I don't know if you saw this last week, but there was some news leaked that apparently they're looking into making a live action Zelda.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, apparently Netflix are looking into the possibility of working with Nintendo to create this live action series. It's really, really early stages, and by early stages I mean apparently they haven't got any writers. They have no script, they have no premise apart from, I guess, just this would be a really cool idea if we did a live action Zelda. It's said to be like Game of Thrones for the whole family. Which, do you watch Game of Thrones? Have you seen much of it?
I'm not up to date. I think I've seen like the first 3 seasons, and I think it's a great show.
Yeah, it's a great show. But imagine a family-friendly version of Game of Thrones. You know, each episode would last probably 4 seconds. You'd have the intro music, a couple of pan shots of landscape, and then the outro. So I don't know how they can do that.
I was thinking it would be like, what's it off back in the 90s? Xena Warrior Princess.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
maybe it'll be that kind of thing.
Tone it down a bit. I mean, look. Yeah. If it comes to light, that's cool. Apparently, Netflix are trying as hard as they can to break into the Japanese market. So, you know, having Zelda on their books, you know, is a real big reason for people over in Japan to subscribe to Netflix. I don't know. Personally, I don't see it happening. It's a cool little story. If it did happen, obviously I'd watch it. But I think thinking back to the Zelda cartoon they released, kind of back in the early 90s, which wasn't the greatest thing I've ever seen. I don't know how well executed it would be. So pretty interesting. It's always cool to hear these kind of stories, but yeah, I don't think it's going to happen personally.
It is, yeah. I think I agree with you. I think it'd be either wonderful or terrifying as a Zelda fan if they did it and they did it right. And there's a possibility, because I mean, if you look at some of the quality of some of the Netflix shows, like Marco Polo and that type of thing, some of the stuff they do is fantastic, but it's like one of the most loved gaming series of all time. And if they screwed it up, it'd be so upsetting for everyone. So, part of me really wants it to happen, and part of me just thinks, no, just leave it alone. It doesn't need to happen because you'll ruin it. But yeah, I suppose we shall see what happens. I suppose we could move on from that to, and it moves on quite nicely again. I had some sales figures from Majora's Mask and Monster Hunter 4, which both came out this Friday, just gone over here. I think they came out in America at the same time.
I think so, right? Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that both Majora's Mask and Monster Hunter 4 have completely outsold their previous iterations. So Link Between Worlds being the last Zelda game that came out, and Monster Hunter 3 being the last Monster Hunter game that came out. Link Between Worlds sold about 150,000 when it came out, whereas Majora's Mask already sold over 200,000, so it's such a big leap. And I guess it's probably partly because everyone kind of already knows what Majora's Mask is because it was an N64 game, but that's pretty cool. But I think the bigger one is Monster Hunter. The Monster Hunter 3 sold, looking at this really bad bar graph I'm looking at, it looks like roughly around 25 to 30,000 copies when that was released a couple of years ago. But Monster Hunter 4 has already sold over 100,000, which for a game like Monster Hunter 4, have you ever played a Monster Hunter game?
Briefly in and out. I fear that if I start to play it, I'd get too into it, so I've kind of jumped out before I get too sucked into it. But I guess the thing with Monster Hunter especially, the new version's 3DS exclusive, isn't it? It's not on console, so
Yeah.
I don't know whether maybe that skewed the figures, because I guess Monster Hunter 3, whether it came out at the same time with the Wii U equivalent, whether that skewed it. But you're right. I mean, to see that sell such high numbers, considering it's classed as, I would say, a niche product, especially over here. It's it's not a massive brand. It's not a massive IP. So yeah, that's really positive. And obviously to see Majora's Mask as well sell such big numbers, especially as it's not the well-known Zelda title, is it? Everyone obviously talks about Ocarina of Time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Being the game that they played the most of, but that's really good to see. I know. Looking at UK charts earlier, it actually was number one last week, which was awesome. And I think if you added all the different titles together, I think there was a game called Evolve that came out kind of across all different formats, which actually sold it better. But if you look at single console sales, it sold the best. So yeah, obviously massively positive. It's good to see it selling so well.
Absolutely, yeah. I say Monster Hunter 4, like you say, because it is such a niche product over here. I mean, Japan, they go crazy for it, but to do so well over here, when it's really got no footing, it is really good. So it's all good things, and it's kind of why I said earlier, it's looking positive for Nintendo this year. Well, that's my last piece of news, though. So, have you got anything more?
Yeah, I've got a real nice segue actually. That's worked out really well. So, talking about sales, I also kind of had a dig around into the new 3DS sales this week. So they announced that across North America and Europe, in the first 2 to 3 days, around 335,000 units were sold across both territories. If you compare that against, I'm looking at an equally poor chart here, around just over 100,000 3DS XL sales. That's a massive increase. So just over 200,000. I know obviously that the XL wasn't much of a difference between the 3DS to the XL. You could probably argue the same, I guess, with the new 3DS. But awesome. I think it was very clever of them as well to release everything together on that same day, having Monster Hunter and Majora's Mask being pretty different games. It kind of appeals to two different audiences. So all positive really for Nintendo at the minute. Things are looking good.
Yeah, and from what I read as well, the 3DS was struggling a little bit up until this point. Then sales have started to dip because they hadn't really been focusing on it because they've been trying to make the Wii U work. So the fact that that's happened is awesome. Time for our next little section here on NintendPals. We're going to talk a little bit about what we've been playing. I'm going to hand it straight over to Nick, and he'll tell you what he's been playing. Then he'll hand back over to me because I've played tons of things, so I'm going to keep us here for ages.
Yeah, I've been really busy the last week or so with work, so I haven't had a huge amount of time to play anything. Kind of off and on, little bits and bobs when I've had a spare hour, and most of the time my gaming kind of gets done with my two daughters. I've got a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, so I have to keep it as family friendly as possible. But we purchased the Mario Kart DLC last week, the Zelda pack, and then the Animal Crossing pack, which is coming I think in May. Yeah. So we've been working our way through that, trying to 3-star everything 50, 100 and 150cc. So we've unlocked all the characters and stuff now, so we're just trying to make sure everything's completed. I absolutely love Mario Kart 8. It's probably as good as the original Super Mario Kart. I would say it's such a cool game, and it's especially multiplayer, whether that be playing local or online. As I said earlier, the thing that Nintendo are doing really well at the minute is actually the online gaming experience is always spotless for me. I've never been booted out of a game of Mario Kart or Smash, so they do that really well.
It's hard though.
Yeah, it's really, really hard.
I play with a group online. They're on Facebook actually. I think it's called Mario Kart UK group or something like that. And the people in there are just like ridiculous at the game. They must play it like every second of the day because I pretty much always come last or within the last 3 people.
I've got like probably 1,500 points. I haven't played it a whole lot online, but yeah, I'm lucky to kind of finish 3rd or 4th. I think once you start seeing those Japanese flags pop up, you're like, oh, okay, it's you're going down. You see people with like 10, 11,000 points. You know you're gonna get it handed to you. 3DS wise, I bought Kirby Triple Deluxe a few months ago, and I'm really, really, really slowly playing my way through that. And actually, my daughter's playing a lot more than what I am, so I'm finding that I'm going back and playing the levels that I've missed. I really like Kirby, and this is a pretty good iteration on the 3DS. I like some of the new stuff, like the the mega suction power and that kind of stuff. Pretty awesome game. As I said, probably only ploughed half an hour into it this week, but still enjoying that. Finally started to play Link Between Worlds. I got that with the promotion when I had my 2DS at Christmas, where you can download a game, and I chose to go for Zelda. Probably only played an hour's worth so far, so it's kind of hard to give a fair impression of it. But loving Link to the Past so much back on the SNES, it's definitely a worthy equivalent, I would say, to that. So yeah, really enjoying that. And that's about it, really. It's been a slow week for me for gaming, so I'll hand over to you because I know you've picked up a couple of new stuff this week. So I'll ask you a few questions as you go along. I'm interested to hear what you got to think about them.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say the Link Between Worlds. I think that was 2013 that came out. Easily the best portable Zelda game I think probably ever released. I definitely prefer it to Ocarina. Not too sure about Majora's Mask, which we'll talk about in a minute, but just play that as much as you can because it's such a good game and it just gets better as it goes on.
How long is it? Do you know?
It's pretty long. I mean, it's probably comparable to. I could probably find out because it's probably in my 3DS.
Probably 25 hours, I guess.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I don't think I ever got everything in the game. I've got my 3DS. I mean, I'll see if I can find a thing while we sort of just fill time. But yeah, it's such a good game, and it kind of recreates Link to the Past so well, but then does new things on top of it that it's incredible. I remember I played that game pretty much just constantly when it came out, and I loved every second of it. I can cut all this out. I can't find it.
So the one thing I haven't got to yet, as you're talking about that, I haven't got to where you can kind of get into the wall, I guess, where you can become a painting from what I've seen. So I haven't got to that part yet, but yeah, I think that should be quite interesting with some of the puzzles I guess they do with it. Yeah,
that's fairly early on, to be fair. You should get that quite soon. But yeah, that's when they introduce that. It's a really cool mechanic, and it allows you to do some really... I don't want to spoil anything for you, but it allows you to do some really cool stuff. But I've just found it on my 3DS, but I played about 21 hours of it. And I know I didn't collect everything in the game. I pretty much just went through the main quest and didn't do a lot of the side stuff. So I think if you played it, really played it deep, it's probably a good 25 to 30 hours. But awesome game.
I'll have that done by Christmas, maybe.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you a little bit what I've been playing. I won't talk too much about what I've played on the Wii U because I haven't probably played masses on the Wii U, to be fair. I've played little bits of this and little bits of that, so I'll probably skip that and I'll talk about the big thing that I have got, which is the brand new 3DS, the new 3DS. I got that sat by the desk beside me, and it's very beautiful.
Which one did you go for? Did you go for the XL or the normal?
I've got the normal sized one, and it's in black. I went for the normal sized one purely because I like the faceplate idea that they've done. Obviously, you can't do that on the XL version. As soon as they were both released, I was like, I want that one. I always find the XLs a bit too big anyway. I know people who've got XLs, and I just find them kind of uncomfortable. Not to use, I think they're great to use, but if you're carrying it around with you, it's not something you can just like stick in your pocket like a normal size 3DS.
Why do you think they didn't do the changeable covers on the XL? Do you think it was just to give a differentiator between the two, apart from the screen size?
I think so. Yeah, I think it might have got a bit confusing if you've got two different consoles that effectively do the same thing, and then you've got two different sets of facepaints that go with them. I think they were probably a little bit worried that you would have people buying the wrong faceplates and things, and it would have got quite confusing. And from what I've seen of the new 3DS, I think they've got a slightly different finish on them, and they do look really nice, to be fair. But I think they're going to try to keep. I think they'll keep that and do more special editions with that, because I don't think there's been any special editions with the normal one.
Right.
Whereas the XL's got obviously the Monster Hunter special edition. Yeah, and the Majora's Mask special edition already, so I kind of think they're going to do that with it. But I really like the idea of the face paints. But the console itself, it's really nice, and it's a really nice step up from the 3DS and the 2DS. The one really cool thing, I don't know if you've seen this, but it doesn't happen on the XL, but the standard's got coloured buttons, the same as the SNES buttons from back in our childhood.
I nearly bought that purely because of that. Good idea.
It was one of those things when I saw it, I was like, well, I need that in my life. It's so cool, and it's just nice that they did that. It's such a little kickback to people like us who've grown up with Nintendo. it's kind of their way of saying, look, we haven't forgotten about you. So that is cool. But yeah, the console itself, it is a big step up. The 3D specifically is so much better than the old 3D. They've really improved the technology. Obviously I had a 2DS before this, and then I had a 3DS before that, which I had for years, and I had to get rid of because it wasn't working properly. But I never ever used the 3D on that because it used to give me a headache because it was so bad.
Me too.
It was awful. The 3D on this, it is much better. I mean, I don't use it all the time because I just don't think my eyes like 3D very much, but I can quite happily play for a good 20-30 minutes with the 3D on the new 3DS, and it doesn't affect me too much, and it's to the point where I can't even notice it's on. It just becomes part of the game experience, and then when you turn it off you go, oh gosh. So that is really good, but it's got a head detection on it. There's a little camera built into the top of the unit that follows your head, so it adjusts the 3D as you move around, so you never get that, like you used to get like a dual image,
like a ghosting. Yeah.
That doesn't really happen anymore at all until sort of, like I say, if your eyes start to get a little bit tired, then it can happen a little bit, but that's one of the main things. The other big thing is the speed of the console. You've got 3DS Smash Bros, haven't you?
Yeah, pretty slow.
You know how long it takes to load up. It's about 20 seconds to actually load the main menu up.
Yeah.
This is pretty much instantaneous. It probably takes 5 seconds, if that, to get from the 3DS menu to the main menu on Smash Bros.
So is that because I haven't read a huge amount into it? Have they changed anything internally, or is it?
It's the process. I think they've changed the actual processor itself, and they've just updated everything, so it actually just runs that much quicker. Even if you're in the middle of the game, when you press the home button on the 2DS and the 3DS now, it kind of pauses for a couple of seconds and then loads the menu up.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen anymore. If you press it, it just goes straight into the menu. And it's only a little thing, but it really does make a big difference when you first realise it and you go, oh wow, this is so quick. So that's really cool as well. And then one of the other things is the C stick, which has been introduced, and that is a pretty big game changer for a couple of things. They released, I don't know if you've played it yet, they released a game called Ironfall on the eShop this week, which is a third-person shooter, an online shooter. And as far as I can tell, the game would be unplayable if you didn't have a new 3DS, because that controls the camera like it would on a like a normal pad. So the C stick acts as the second analog stick, and it just makes it feel like a proper console. And I know the 3DS is a proper console anyway, but
yeah, I know what you mean. So it's positioned above the buttons, is that right? So A, B, X, Y, it's positioned above there, is that right?
Yes, so the X is at the top, obviously, where a triangle would be on a PlayStation, so it's kind of just up and just to the left of that.
Right. Does that feel comfortable enough? I mean, I guess that kind of put me off, really. Obviously, you'd always be used to having your right analog stick below your standard buttons.
Yeah, I suppose it is a little bit of an odd design, but saying that, I think it's the same. If I think about a Wii U pad, I think it's the same design on there, so I assume that's why they've done it. But it is pretty comfortable. Like I say, if you're playing a shooter like Ironfall, I mean, you're using the triggers to shoot anyway, so it doesn't really affect too much. And then obviously the face buttons are like weapons and stuff. So it is actually quite comfortable, and it's very responsive as well, the C stick, and you can adjust the sensitivity of it as well if you find it too sluggish, which I actually did with Ironfall. I turned the sensitivity right up so I could whip the camera around, but it's really good. And then it's exactly the same on Majora's Mask. It controls the camera, which again, it's really nice. It helps you explore the world a lot. It means you're not like walking into walls and having to press the face buttons to try and work the camera out. So that's really, really nice. Well, I'm glad they finally put that in, because it means they're going to be able to do things like first-person shooters, third-person shooters on that console, which is going to hopefully appeal to other gamers, like more casual gamers who like those kind of games.
So do you think if your hands weren't tied by the fact that your 3DS had broken, would it have kind of made you want to step up from a 3DS to the new 3DS? Do you think there's enough there to warrant going out and getting one?
I suppose it's hard to say. I think with the massive, at the moment, I would say with the massive catalogue of existing 3DS games that you've got, which don't really need the C-stick and the extra shoulder buttons, I don't think you'd necessarily need one at the moment. But obviously, with games like Xenoblade coming out in a couple of months, which are exclusive to the console, they're going to do more games which are exclusive to the new 3DS. I think it's something everyone's going to want to step up to. I think if you're a Nintendo fanboy like myself, I think, yeah, you need one because you'll just love how much quicker it is, how much more little things it does. But I think for the casual person who's got a 3DS, they're playing it all the time. They got Smash Bros and they got Mario Kart. I think probably wait until a few more games come out that are a must for it. If you're into Amiibo, then get it because it's obviously got Amiibo support, which I've tried out on Smash Bros and it works fantastically.
So how are they backtracking that with 2DS and 3DS? I know they were bringing out an adapter. Is that still what they're going to do?
As far as I know, yeah, they're releasing. I think it's already released in Japan, but they're releasing like a little. Apparently, everyone's calling it a hockey puck because that's what it looks like, right. Which attaches to the DS in some way. I don't know exactly how. I don't know whether it's wireless or whether it plugs into like the charge point or something like that. Right. And then that's got the NFC point on it, whereas in the new 3DS it's on the screen. So you put your Amiibo on the screen itself, and that reads your Amiibos, which is really cool.
Nice, sounds good.
Yeah. Well, I'll move on because I just talked forever about console. I'll talk a little bit about Monster Hunter because I haven't actually played too much of that just yet. I've probably only played about an hour of it, but so far so good. I played Monster Hunter 3 not massively. One of the main reasons I didn't play Monster Hunter 3 massively was actually because of the camera. I found it really frustrating to use because the camera on that was the directional pad.
Did you play it on 3DS before?
Yeah, I had it on the normal 3DS. Yeah. So yeah, the camera on that was the directional pad, which is obviously underneath the analog stick. So to move the camera, you had to take your finger off the analog stick, and I used to find it so frustrating to play. And also the other big problem with Monster Hunter as a series is that it's just very hard to break into and understand. And I remember Monster Hunter 3 being that. It was so difficult to sort of get your head round, and it kind of just plonks you in this world and just says, go on, do what you want to do. The big difference between Monster Hunter 4 and 3 is Monster Hunter 4 has got a big tutorial. It probably lasts about 40 minutes, and it slowly introduces a lot of the different mechanics. I mean, I think I'm probably still in the tutorial because new stuff's getting added very, very slowly, but it doesn't just plonk everything in front of you and just say do it. It takes you through a couple of missions where you're just doing one thing, so you can just learn that, and it's much easier to get your head around and feel like you're learning the game, which is great. And obviously graphically it's about the same as Monster Hunter 3, but I mean the graphics are pretty good anyway. But yeah, so far it's really good. Like I say, I haven't played masses of it. I've only just done my first proper quest where I had to go and hunt a monster, and it was really, really cool, really fun. But I think I'll probably talk more about that next week when I've taken on one of the big baddies, and I'd maybe experience some of the multiplayer, which I haven't looked at yet either.
So I think for me that's probably where the power of Monster Hunter lies, isn't it? Where you can go online and get together with 3 or 4 friends and do a hunt, I guess as it's called, or a quest or whatever they call it. So that's probably where the power lies within Monster Hunter.
And it is more. I played the demo that they released with a friend at work. We were working through the night one night, and on our break we decided to play the demo together. And I still had my 2DS at that point, so I had the issues with the camera, but playing it with just one other person and doing the hunt together was so much more rewarding because you're talking to each other, trying to plan out strategies and stuff, and then when it goes wrong, you're having to go at each other, and it's really, really good fun. So yeah, I'm going to try and look at the multiplayer. I'm not quite sure how it works yet. There's a big guild hall in the main sort of hub of the game that you have to go to, and then I think you search for a game and join other people. But I'll investigate that this coming week, and then I can talk about that next week.
Awesome.
But yeah, and then the last thing I'll talk about is Majora's Mask, which I got the special edition of that.
Where did you get that from? Nintendo Store, I guess.
Yeah, Nintendo Store. I actually got that and the new 3DS from Nintendo Store. And a top tip for anyone who's listened to this podcast: if you want to buy stuff that's Nintendo, buy it from the Nintendo Store because they deliver it the day before it comes out. I got Majora's Mask and the new 3DS on the Thursday before they were released, so which is fantastic service. It comes through recorded delivery, and it's really, really well done. So go with that, and the prices are fine as well. The prices are what you pay anywhere else. Yeah, the Majora's Mask. So I got the special edition. So I've got the metal case, and I got the little pin badge, and it's all really, really cool stuff. The pin badge especially is nice. It's a pin badge of obviously Majora's Mask, and the details on it is really, really nice. I mean, it's a proper little collectible, geeky thing, and I'm really glad I've got it. But yeah, the game itself, I'd actually never played Majora's Mask.
Yeah, nor me. Never played it.
Yeah, I'm actually ashamed to say as well, I've never actually completed Ocarina of Time either. So that sort of era of Zelda games, I'm kind of a novice in. I've probably played about half of Ocarina of Time when it was re-released on 3DS a few years ago, but I never actually played it on the N64. So I kind of went into this a little bit blind. Obviously, I knew that it was going to be a weird game because I'd looked at a lot of the information Nintendo had released. But so far, I think I prefer it to Ocarina of Time. I say I played about half of that, and there was a really slow burn Ocarina of Time to actually get into the meat of the game. I think it's it's a good couple of hours doing.
Yeah. All the initial stuff, getting your sword, getting your shield, go for the Deku tree. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Whereas Majora's Mask, I think within the first sort of 20 odd minutes, you're doing stuff, you're fighting enemies, you're kind of doing a dungeon, and so it really just kicks you into it straight away, which is much nicer, especially for a handheld game, because you're not sat there thinking, ugh, you just get into it. But yeah, I won't talk about obviously the story or anything too much because I don't want to spoil anything for anyone. But the story so far, from my understanding of it, it's a really cool story. It's nothing like any other Zelda game, which obviously everyone's said, but the normal save the princess from Ganon thing, they kind of threw that out the window and just said, let's do something completely off the wall, and they did. I think they took a massive risk when they released this on the N64, and it paid off because it's such a good game. I think it's one of those Marmite games there. A lot of people I've seen have said they hate this. They think it's the worst Zelda game. And then other people I've seen have said it's their favourite. For me so far, I think it's one of the better ones.
Do you think that's because of, again, from what I understand of it, I've just read a lot about it, it's because it's all about that countdown timer, isn't it? Where you've got, like, is it 72 hours until the world ends, or whatever that case may be. So do you think a lot of people were put off by that? I remember myself personally thinking back to the N64. I played a lot of Ocarina of Time, completed it multiple times, and for whatever reason, I never bought Majora's Mask, and I think it's probably because of the fact that as I said earlier, because I'm not massively good at games, I like to take my time and explore and stuff. I always felt that if there's a clock counting down, I've got 2 minutes to get from here to there, and that doesn't really appeal to me. So, is that true? Is that taken away in this version, or have you still got that element of you need to do something within a specific amount of time?
Honestly, I think it's a case that Nintendo sold it badly, because you have got that count. Like you say, you've got 72 hours until the world ends. Basically, the moon's going to crash into the world. So that's always happening. It's always on the back of your mind. And I think the way they sold it, it kind of makes it sound like it's going to be a really short game where you're constantly fighting against the clock. And it kind of doesn't really work like that. The basic mechanic of the game is you've got that clock counting down. But then at any point during the game, you can reset and go back to the start of the first day again. Obviously, if you do that, you lose any progress that you've made in terms of like rupees collected and things like that. But any main story arc stuff, that sticks. So when you complete a dungeon, that'll stick. Then no matter how many times you reset the game to the start of the first day, you've always completed that dungeon, or you've always completed that particular quest.
So do you retain your items as well? So like if you've upgraded your sword and stuff.
Things like important gear, and obviously masks are a big component of the game. Because obviously Majora's Mask, you collect loads of different masks, so those stick. And say things like I've collected the hero bow so far. You get that in the first dungeon, so I've collected that. So you keep that, but you lose all your consumables. So your rupees go back down to 0. Any arrows you've got go back down to 0. And so you have to recollect those, which it sounds like a bit of a ball ache, but it's really not, because the game's so generous with giving out ammo that the first barrel you break open, you're pretty much stocked up on arrows anyway. But honestly, it makes it a really cool mechanic, and I won't go on too much longer, but one of my favourite experiences so far with the game has been the first dungeon that I completed. I had to do it twice, because I got to a point where I was going into the dungeon with, I think, like a day and a half left before the moon was going to crash into the earth, and I thought I could either reset and do this properly with 3 days, or I could try and get through it in a day and a half. And I tried to get through it in a day and a half, and it came down to I think I had about 30 minutes left to get the boss key and then go and find the boss, and I just missed it. And it sounds like it would be really annoying, but it wasn't. It was really exciting, because I felt like I really had a mission to complete, which I think lacks a little bit in some Zelda games, because you can take your time so much. But with this, I really felt like I've got to do this, I've got to do this. And then when it got to the point where I was like, I'm not going to do this, I've got to reset it. It was really cool, and I really liked it. And I hope that kind of stays with the other temples and the other dungeons that you have to do. It's making that gamble of, do I do this now, or do I kind of wait around, or do I reset? It's a really cool mechanic, and it's something that I don't think any other game's ever really attempted. I'd recommend it highly for anyone, especially if you like Zelda games. Don't be put off by the fact that it's not traditional Zelda. It's still a fantastic game.
So how graphically, how is it? Like, if you go back and play Ocarina of Time back on the 64 now, it's aged horribly, but I think they did a good job when they remastered, I guess, quote unquote, but when they put it on the 3DS. Is it quite similar with Majora's Mask? I guess quality is pretty good.
Yeah, it looks really nice. Like I said, I didn't play it on the N64, so I kind of had no basis for comparison. But the first time I booted it up, I thought, like, this looks really nice. And today I actually saw a video for a comparison between the original and the 3DS, showing some like for like scenes. And when you see that, the difference is actually quite incredible. They haven't just sort of slapped a little bit of paint on; they've completely redone certain sections, and it does look really good. But without even that comparison, it's a good looking game. It's one of the better looking games on the 3DS, I would probably say.
That sounds good. I think you've sold it to me. That worry I had all those years ago of rapidly running around trying to find a boss or a key or something. The fact that you can reset that is cool. So maybe I'll pick it up this week and give it a go.
Top tip as well. There's also a way to slow down time, because time moves. I think it's about a minute a second roughly. So the days do quite quickly, but there's I won't tell you what it is. If you want to know, send me a tweet or a message or something, I'll tell you. But there's a way of slowing down the clock dramatically, which makes the game not necessarily easier, but a little bit more approachable, I suppose, which is really good. So yeah, there's that as well.
Awesome, sounds good. Is that it?
Yeah, that's pretty much everything I've played. Like I said, I'll continue with these two, and I'll probably talk a little bit more about them next week. But I'll make sure I attack Monster Hunter and really have some good stuff to talk about on that next week.
Cool. All right. Let's move over to our next segment. I don't know whether we'll do this every week. Maybe we will. Whether we can find enough content for it, but I just want to do like a quick top and bottom list. So as I said, hopefully every week we'll do a top 5 and a bottom 5 on a certain subject. My turn this week, and I've decided to go with something quite generic, seeing as it's a Nintendo focused podcast. So I've gone for my top and bottom 5 Mario games of all time. So I'll start with my top 5. Number 5, I've put Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U. There's actually a couple of Wii U games in on here. As I said earlier, it's amazing. It's probably the game I think I play the most on the Wii U, along with Smash. Awesome levels, amazing soundtrack, absolutely amazing soundtrack. Especially if you get the DLC, you play the level for the castle, the Zelda castle.
Yeah, that's amazing. That song is.
Yeah, absolutely awesome. It's worth. I think it's like $8.99, $9.99, whatever. It's worth it just to hear that song being played through, and to put.
Have you seen the YouTube video of the band playing it?
Yeah,
in the studio?
I've seen that.
That's wicked. That is. Yeah, Google that.
Pretty good.
YouTube it.
We'll put a link up on Facebook maybe. Yeah, that's pretty cool to see. But yeah, that's my number 5. Number 4 is actually a Game Boy game, Super Mario Land 2, 6 gold coins. I had the first Mario Land on the Game Boy. It wasn't particularly great. It was kind of a port, I guess, of the original Super Mario. But 6 gold coins is absolutely an incredible Mario game. It doesn't really get a lot of attention. I think it's on Virtual Console, so if you haven't tried it before, give it a go. It's definitely my favourite Game Boy game of all time. Number 3, Super Mario All-Stars / Super Mario World. A bit of a cop-out here, because obviously with Mario All-Stars I can include Mario 1, 2, 3, Lost Levels, etc. But also for Super Mario World, again, probably the Super Nintendo game I put some of the most amount of time into. absolutely amazing level design, great graphics for the time, and the fact, as I said, as a bonus, you can also have all the original Mario games as well. It's a cool cartridge to pick up. Number 2.
That's not on, that one's not on Virtual Console, is it?
No, I don't think so. I think they've split them all individually, haven't they?
Yeah, because I only ever played bits of that. My cousin used to have a SNES and he had that, and I used to think this is awesome. But I never got to play it properly. I would really like to. So yeah, Nintendo need to do that. They need to release that properly on Virtual Console.
I think they did on Wii, didn't they? Didn't they do a like a 25th anniversary where they kind of re-released All Stars? I'll look into that. I think they did. I think they did. Number 2, Super Mario 3D World. For me, this is the best kind of traditional Mario game. I'm not a huge fan of 3D Mario games on the whole, but such an incredible game, especially if you play it 4-player or 3-player in the case that I did. So me and my 2 girls actually went through and completed it all. Probably the most fun I think I've ever had with a kind of a traditional Mario game, especially the fact that local multiplayer works so well on it too. And what I liked about it was that on some of the harder levels where maybe some of the other players aren't as good, you just get them to jump inside of a bubble and you can kind of carry on and get them to jump back in when you want them to. So amazing game. And then number 1, this was quite hard, but I think probably for just hours played, I'm probably going to say Super Mario Kart on the SNES. It's hard to say how good this game was, but I just really fond memories of me and my brother playing battle mode. Where you had your 3 balloons hanging out the back of your cart and trying to pop each other with green and red shells. We must have spent a huge amount of time on that, so that's probably my number 1.
Yeah, it's the one thing that's missing from Mario Kart 8 as well, because the battle mode on there is not too good because it's just set on courses.
It's too big. That's the problem, isn't it? With the Super Nintendo version, it was just a pretty small square, where you'd have some kind of minor obstacles like the mud or the water. But yeah, you're right. I think the battle mode is pretty lacking on Mario Kart 8. Anything you disagree with there? I mean, we might do it in a future one where we do your version of this, but have you got a favourite Mario game in mind?
I think probably the only one on there that I would have added, and I don't know what it would have kicked off because it's a solid list, is New Super Mario Bros. 2 on the 3DS. That for me is probably the best 2D Mario platforming game that they've ever released. I think it's just from top to bottom, it's an incredible game, and I've got really fond memories of it. It's probably rose tinted because when that came out, I was going away on my honeymoon. I just got married, so I've got memories of playing that in Italy, sat on a balcony, which kind of probably...
Ignoring your new bride.
Well, she played it too. I think she completed it before I did. But yeah, I've got really fond memories of playing that and just being so blissfully happy that I think I would have to add it on there. But yeah, apart from that, I think it's a really good game. There's a few games on there which I think people would expect to see sort of Mario Galaxy on there, but I think you're like me, you never really played Mario Galaxy.
No.
And I'm hoping they do a re-release on that where you can play it with normal controls, because that's the one thing that put it off for me. But yeah, I think it's a good list. What about your bottom 5?
So bottom 5, number 5 is Mario Strikers Charged on the Wii, which was a football crossover. Actually, I play a lot of sports games kind of away from Nintendo. So I actually really like the crossover stuff. For example, there's a Mario Golf game on the Game Boy Advance made by Camelot, who are the same guys who did Golden Sun, and it's an incredible cross between golf and what was I going to say? Between golf and like an RPG elements where you can level up and all that kind of stuff. There's a baseball game on the GameCube which is amazing. Mario Power Tennis is a really good game. For some reason, I just couldn't get on with Mario Strikers Charged. So yeah, for me, it's in the bottom 5, unfortunately.
There's a new golf one they did for 3DS. You might want to check that out. I'm not sure if it was still made by Camelot, but you might want to have a look into that one.
Okay, I'll take a look. Number 4, New Super Mario Bros. U on the Wii U. I don't know why I couldn't get into this. I think I actually played it after I played 3D World, and I think my expectations were so high at that point that going back and playing that version, I just couldn't get into it. And kind of in contrast to you, I haven't really enjoyed the kind of the cross between the side-scrolling Mario game with the 3D elements in it. I didn't really like the DS versions. Didn't really like the 3DS versions. So I couldn't get into it, and again, trying to play it local multiplayer where you didn't have the ability to put somebody into a bubble while you kind of cracked on with the level was kind of missing for me. So
it is like rock hard as well. That game is it's like hardcore hard.
Yes, it was pretty tough. Number 3 was Paper Mario: Thousand Year Door on the GameCube. I kind of again against what I said earlier, where I liked Mario Golf on the Game Boy Advance because it added RPG elements. I don't actually like any of the Super Mario RPG games. I played the one on the SNES, didn't really get on with it, and kind of similar on the GameCube version on Thousand Year Door. So yeah, for me it just didn't really work. Not a fan. Number 2 is Mario Kart 64, which is probably a pretty unpopular choice around Mario Kart fans, but again, I guess it's because I didn't play it as much as things like Double Dash or Super Mario Kart for whatever reason. For me, I found it didn't work particularly well with the N64 pad, the pad not being the greatest pad of all time, but I just couldn't really get on with it. So that's my number 2. And then first of all, my bottom Mario game of all time goes to Super Mario Sunshine, which on the GameCube, pretty poor game, and I put a good 10 or 12 hours into it, and it's by far the worst Mario game I've ever played, for reasons that I haven't got time to go into now. So yeah. Any on that list, Miles, that you'd agree with, or is there anything that you would probably say is worse than Mario Sunshine?
Well, Mario Sunshine for me, I can't really have an opinion on it because I never played enough of it. I did own it on the GameCube, but I don't think I gave it the time of day. I think I played it for like an hour and was like, nah, I'll put it down. And I would like to play it again, to try it, just to see, if years later on it was really that bad. But I think other than that, I'm pretty much on board with what you said. Mario Kart 64, I'm like you, I never played a lot of it, so I haven't really got a special place for it in my heart. And then, I mean, I do like I said, I really like the 2D Mario games, but the Wii, New Super Mario Bros. Wii and Wii U, they are very, very tough games. And like for yourself, if you're trying to play it with younger people, or I play with my wife a lot, they struggle with it because they're not advanced games like us. I think that's a problem with it. Then I think if they'd put like an easy mode on those games, then it would have made them better. But yeah, I'm pretty much on board with everything you said there, to be honest.
Cool. Well, I'm sure many people will disagree with what I've said. So if you guys have got any opinions, get onto our Facebook group or Twitter or whatever, and we'll give you the details for that at the end.
Well, there you go. That was pretty much everything for the first episode of NintendPals episode 1. Before we give out how you can contact and stuff, we've got a few questions, which is pretty impressive considering this is the first ever episode. But I put out a little plea for questions on Twitter earlier today, and a few people have acquiesced. So we'll dive into those very quickly, because I'm conscious that we're keeping people on our podcast when they could be listening to something else. So the first question comes from a good friend of mine, a guy who runs a podcast all about PlayStation, actually, which you should check out. It's called PlayStation Radio UK. Very, very good podcast. Slight warning that they're much cruder than ourselves, but they're a couple of real funny guys. This is from a guy called Ben, and he says, can you explain the difference between the DSs, so all the various DSs? I've been looking into acquiring one, but I don't know where to start.
Probably talked about that a bit earlier, didn't we? I guess we probably gave them some good reasons to maybe look at the new 3DS. For me, I've got a 2DS and I've got an original 3DS. Personally, I'm really happy with the 2DS. I find that it's really comfortable to hold. I was kind of put off by the fact that it didn't have that kind of clamshell design, so maybe the screens were exposed, but get yourself a nice case and that doesn't really matter. And for me, kind of like Miles, I guess, from a 3DS perspective, I never really used the 3D effect on any games. I just didn't really get on with it. So for me, I really like the 2DS. I haven't tried a new 3DS yet. I'm hoping to, but I'm happy with my 2DS. If you kind of want a budget way of kind of just starting out, I think the 2DS is a good option, actually. Yeah,
I agree with that. I think it's a really, really good place to start the 2DS. Obviously, anything with a 2 or a 3 in front of it will play all the latest games and stuff. So try and stay away from the older models like the DS and the DSi. But a 2DS, you can get them for under £100 now, and there's such a vast collection of games that you can get into. And I know Ben's into Persona on the Vita, and I'm pretty sure there's one of those out on 3DS now.
There is Persona Q, I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got that to start with. Plus you've got Pokemon. You've got there's hundreds and hundreds of games to play on the 3/2DS that I think for someone who wants to break into Nintendo handhelds, I don't think they necessarily need to start with the brand new 3DS, and it's an expensive thing to buy. So I would go with the 2DS. Like I say, you can pick them up for £8 if you really look at getting a good bargain. So I'd go with that. Next question is from an American who I know, a really good friend of mine called Mike Rowe. He asks, if Nintendo had a theme park, what would be the coolest ride?
That's a good question, Mike. I would like to see a Rob the Robot style ride where you would sit on those spinning discs and probably
throw it everywhere.
Yeah, probably be quite a high death rate. Something you could put on Roller Coaster Tycoon maybe and see how many people died within the first couple of minutes. But yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Obviously, like a Mario Kart version of go karts would be nice, or Dodgems or something like that. Yeah, it's probably like you could do with a Nintendo theme park.
Yeah, they could open a theme park tomorrow, I reckon, and have just like the best stuff. I think for me it would have to be a ghost house. They're so iconic. The ghost houses are from Mario games. I think if you could walk around one of those and have boos chasing you and stuff like that, I think it would be like the greatest thing ever. So I think I would say that a proper Mario ghost house, that would be awesome.
That'd be sweet.
Question 3 is from someone we both know, actually, Aaron Adkins. I think we've both worked with him at some points in the past. He asks, what has Nintendo got to offer the hardcore gamer?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I know there's many times we've had a few discussions on Facebook and stuff. I know Aaron likes his PC games a lot, and he likes stuff like Assassin's Creed and stuff like that. I guess to your point earlier, Mars, where you said about a lot of people having a Wii, kind of really, really casual gamers. That's not really the case with the Wii U, and I guess that goes to show, and it's probably because of the fact that there's not as many, I guess, gimmicky games. I guess that was maybe the issue with the Wii. If Aaron's only played the Wii and hasn't really spent a lot of time on the Wii U, he'll find games like Bayonetta, which is definitely not a kid's game.
Yeah.
A pretty incredible game. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and I'm not going to start listing games that are probably better for the hardcore gamer, but I would just say that if for people that maybe haven't tried a Wii U, that all they know is a Wii, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by just everything really, from the games library through to kind of how the console works.
Yeah, I think the thing that puts a lot of people like Aaron off is a lot of what Nintendo does is cutesy and it looks very kiddie. Like Mario, it's all primary colours. Pokemon's, it's a kid's thing technically, even though it's the best things ever.
Yeah.
And I think that's what puts people off. But I think if you're willing to give games like that a chance, you'll see that they're not just a kid's game. Like I said, if you want to play a hard game, play Super Mario Wii or Wii U. They're rock hard.
Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze on the Wii U, probably the hardest game I've ever played in my life.
Yeah, I've not played that, but I've heard it's meant
ridiculous.
To be like rock solid.
Yeah.
So there is stuff there. Like you've got to kind of, if you don't like it, you've got to fight past the cutesy stuff. And then, like you said, you've got things like Bayonetta, you've got Xenoblade coming out later on this year. So there's absolutely tons of stuff. And then you've got that vast back catalogue of virtual console titles. If you can battle through the eShop, which if you want a hardcore game to play that's going to keep you going, any one of those games from yesteryear, like the SNES games or the NES games, they will keep you going because they're unforgiving.
It's cheap enough as well, isn't it? It's not. The Wii U can be had for £150 if you shop around, and as we said earlier, you pick up a 2DS for £80, and Aaron will sink, I'm sure, 250, 300 quid into a new graphics card for his PC. So it's kind of drop in the ocean prices, and there's some good stuff to be had.
Absolutely, yeah. I think do we have one more question as well?
Yeah, last question actually came from my brother Joe, so thanks for the question. I'm just going to read this as it's written. Let's hope there's no swear words in here. He's snuck in. I'm wondering why the whole Amiibo thing has got out of hand with people buying them up and then never opening them. What's with that? Do you think they'll hold their value and be worth a lot in the future, or diminish in value, kind of like how Pokemon cards were?
Amiibos. I think thing with Amiibo is, like I said earlier, Nintendo have been really clever. They've marketed certain characters in such a way that's created that panic, that's made people need to buy them. It's made that the eBay prices skyrocket. Like you can look at Rosalinas, they're 30, 40 quid now on eBay. In terms of whether they'll hold their value, I don't. Things like Mario, the Mario character, he's clearly not going to hold his value because everyone's going to have a Mario character eventually. They'll start giving them away probably. Who's the first one I got because it's what the shop I went to had, because they had 1,000 Marios. But I think there'll be some rare ones which will hold value, like for those collectors who don't take them out of the box and just put them on a shelf and leave them there, like your Rosalinas in your Wii Fit trainers. Years to come, they will probably go for hundreds of pounds. You've only got to look at things like Metroid Prime Trilogy. I know the price has dipped on it now, but before it got released on the eShop, that used to sell for like 60, 70 pounds on eBay because you just couldn't get it anywhere. And the collectors, especially Nintendo collectors, they're tenacious about the stuff they want to buy.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if I think society's changed a little bit. We're talking about panic buying and people, having this perceived rarer characters. I think so many people now are buying amiibos because exactly that reason. They think, if I buy this one, hopefully this will be rarer than the others, and I'll maybe I keep hold of it for a couple of weeks and see what happens. So yeah, I don't know. I think like 5 or 10 years from now, I think apart from maybe the odd one or two, I don't think you're going to be sitting on a fortune of money. I think going back to the earlier point about people keeping them in boxes, it's just different strokes for different folks, I guess. People like to some people like to keep things nice and sealed, and some people like to get them out of the box and play with them. I don't think the NFC chip works if they're sealed, as far as I'm aware. I didn't try. I opened my Peach up straight away, but I imagine
I don't think it does. I think it's got to have exact contact with the device. I don't think it does.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like I said earlier, if you think that the 10, 11 up to £15 kind of retail price for actually just as a figure, taking away the NFC element, I think they're really nice, well created figures. They're of a really nice high quality. So actually I can see, for somebody that maybe isn't a huge gamer, actually just likes Nintendo and maybe the toy side of things, you'll probably find a lot of people buying amiibos that actually never have no intention of using them as unlocking a Bowser strip on Ace Combat or something. It's for them, it's just about having a nice looking figure that maybe some of the niche characters like Little Mac and Wii Fit Trainer and stuff maybe that you wouldn't expect to see on normal figure lines. They just want to have them just as figures as opposed to something that enhances a game.
I really want a Little Mac now. You said Little Mac.
I know. I tried to get it. It's pretty ridiculous.
He's like my favourite character on Smash Bros at the minute, so I super want one. But yeah, I'm kind of half and half, I suppose, in both camps. I really like the figures just for the figures, and I think if they'd just gone, here's a range of figures, I'd still brought some. But I also like the amiibo stuff, the NFC stuff. So yeah, there we go. I think that's all our questions.
Yeah, that's it.
Cool. Well, we'll wrap it up there. If you do want to get in contact with us, if you want to ask us a question, or you want to give us some feedback on the show, or there's something you want to hear us talk about, then please contact us. You can find us on Twitter. We are at NintendPals, or you can find us on Facebook. All you have to do is search NintendPals and we come up. Or you can send an email directly to us, and that's nintendpals@mail.com. We've also obviously got friend codes for 3DS and Wii U, but what I'll do is I'll put those in the show notes. And then if you want to add us on there, then feel free to send us a request on either console. And that's about it. Anything you want to add? Something in there? Anything you want to say?
No. If you're still listening by this point, anyone that isn't me and you, thanks for sticking around. Hopefully, by the time we've edited, we'll be in it under an hour. I know we said before we started we probably wanted to keep it to 45 minutes, so we'll see how we get on. Things might change, but yeah, keen to hear your guys' feedback. If there's anything you want to hear more of, less of, whatever, let us know, and we'll see what we can do for future episodes.
Absolutely, yeah. And like we said at the top of the show, we're pretty new at this, so we're kind of finding our feet. So we appreciate you sticking with us, and thanks. Cool. Well, we'll wrap it up there. So we'll see you next week. We need to come up with a sign off, really. But until next week, happy gaming, everyone.